Okay, I like to talk about my backstory, how I got to have three C-sections. So I had my first C-section. It was an emergency C-section. My pregnancy was fine. I had everything. I had the normal sickness. First trimester, second trimester was okay. Third trimester was fine too. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just walking, just read about how to induce labor. But I didn't do anything to induce labor. I just walked and then, yeah, of course, I had sex. But nothing was happening. I asked my mom what she did. She said, "Oh, just have sex. It would happen." I went to meet the doctors. I wasn't complaining. They were just, they just book you for appointments after the scans and everything. And when you're overdue, they just tell you to come and to see what they can do. And they tell you, immediately you feel anything, just come to the hospital. So I was overdue by a couple of days, I think, when contractions started. But thinking about it now, it was nothing. So it was just one of those contractions that it wasn't painful, but it just felt, oh yeah, I'm having contractions. They're telling me to come to the hospital. That's what they said. So let's do that. So I went to the hospital. They said, oh, I wasn't dilated. I should go home. I went home. The contractions got a bit stronger. I was like, it's best to just be in the hospital. They know what to do better than laboring at home. I didn't even know. Even though I actually did experience my mom going into labor at home when I was a kid. But you just felt that, oh, times have changed and it's better to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital and they said, oh yeah, I was dilated and they would admit me in the hospital. So I was happy that, yeah, I finally get to see my first baby. Everything was going fine until they told me to lie down on the bed and they strapped me with all the monitoring device and everything, and they were monitoring the heart rate. And the next thing they were saying was, oh, we can break your water to make everything go faster. I was like, why not? Might as well just do it. Let's just get this baby out, since according to them it's overdue and it could keep getting bigger. So I was like, I don't want the baby to get too big and I don't want anything to happen to the baby, so I just surrendered to you. They broke the water. The contraction was going fine. It was getting strong. I was using gas and air. I didn't know how to use it at that time. And the next thing they said was, oh, if the pain is getting more, we can give you epidural. I was like, no, I don't want epidural at the moment. But anyway, the pain kept on getting stronger. And they're like, oh, you're not dilating as fast as we want you to. Think about it. It was just the same day, couple of hours. It wasn't long at all. So I didn't progress for too long. And they're like, oh, the heart rate is dropping. For that reason, we will just go for a C-section. And I was crying. I said I didn't want a C-section. They're like, oh, sorry, the heart rate is dropping. Oh, for that reason, we'll give you a C-section. They didn't offer anything else. They didn't offer to change my position, to see if baby was doing fine after that. No. But when they broke my waters, they said the baby had meconium, just a little bit of meconium. So anyway, we had to go for a C-section. They gave me the epidural. I was feeling normal after that, of course. There was no pain anymore, and they took me to the theater, and then I had a C-section. I was like, okay, fine. That was the first one. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't reading about C-section, but it has happened. It was not nice for recovery and everything. The second baby was 2 years after I had my first child. I got pregnant again. I knew I didn't want to have a C-section because I didn't like the way the recovery was, and I have my scars turned to keloids. It's like a skin tag, but develops on your scars, and they're quite big lumps. So I didn't want that. It was already horrible where they did the C-section. I was going for treatment to reduce it with steroids injection, but it wasn't working much. But I didn't want to have a scar opened again. So I was not preparing for a VBAC, like mentally. I just knew at the back of my mind I'm going to try for a vaginal birth. I did everything I could, not much, just exercise, sex, a lot of walking to places with my toddler, just walking around and doing exercise, eating pineapple. I didn't do anything else apart from eating pineapple, walking and having sex. Those were the things I was doing. And I did everything as the doctor said, all the appointments, all the consultants and everything. They didn't tell me anything about, are you having a VBAC or a C-section? I think they just assumed I was having a C-section. So there was no birth plan or anything. And I went overdue as well again. I think I was over 41 weeks this time around. I think almost, like 41 weeks and a day or two. I was told to come for an induction. So I went for the induction that day. They didn't have any beds, so I was in the waiting area. There were beds there, but for the waiting area, not the labor room. So I stayed there with my husband. We were gisting, relaxing. I had someone take care of my toddler. We were there from morning around, I think 11 o'clock, and nobody saw us. Nobody came to attend to us. We were asking them when would we be seen. No, they said, oh, we're still waiting for a bed to be free. I don't know why, because we were just so used to the fact that they said, come to the hospital, follow what your doctors say. We should have just left and then come back whenever they have the bed, whenever they call us. But I was there. I was having contractions on that day. And it was intensifying, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't deal with because I was changing my positions and I had done stuff, including using a herbal birth soap, which actually softens your body and prepares you for whenever your body is ready for labor, prepares you for that time, and it softens your body for your body to go into labor naturally when your body is ready. So I went into labor by myself again, the second one, but this time around it was in the hospital. So I was moving side to side. My husband was rubbing my back. I was just waiting for me to be induced, not knowing I was actually in labor. My husband left the hospital around 10 o'clock, saying, since nothing has happened and they haven't seen you yet, I might as well just leave you. Let me go home, tidy up some things, and then come back and meet you. Well, he left. As soon as he left, I was alone. I went to the toilet. The next thing was the labor. The contractions just got really, really painful. I felt the urge to just squat. I was just squatting in the toilet, not knowing I was actually 8 centimeters dilated. I went back to the bed and then pressed the button to get the attention of the midwives. They ran to me and I was like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. And they just checked me and they're like, oh, you're 8 centimeters dilated. They took me to for some reason, the bed just opened up. They took me to the room, to the labor room, and I was there. They gave me gas and air. I still didn't know how to use the thing. I wasn't relaxed enough to understand how to use it, and nobody showed me how to use it. So I was just crazy, just shouting, screaming. And the next thing was the doctor came and like, we can see in your note that you've had a C-section and you should be having a C-section. And I was like, no, I shouldn't be having one. But at that point, it was not the right time for me to speak to anyone because I was fully in labor. So I couldn't really fight for myself. I couldn't fight for myself. So he said, oh, you have to go for a cesarean. And I kept on saying, I'm not going for a cesarean. But he said, oh, okay, but your baby is in distress. And we can't. You've had a C-section before. You should have a C-section. I couldn't even negotiate at that point because I was already in so much pain. I couldn't talk through contractions. I hadn't learned how to breathe through my contractions so that I can be able to communicate with my providers, with the specialists, with the consultants or the medical team. And they take advantage of that. And they're like, oh, your baby is in distress. Of course my baby is going to be in distress because you're stressing me out. And the next thing I knew was like, you have to sign this consent form. You have to sign this consent form. You have to sign this consent form. We have space right now. We can go for the operation right now. We have a space. You need to sign it so that we can go for the operation. We have a space right now. I just couldn't take it. I just called my husband and like, you have to come right now. And they're taking me to the theater. He had to rush down and they did a C-section. I kept on telling them that I have a keloid scar. It won't be advisable for you to open it up again. Said, oh, don't worry, we'll sort it out. We'll use a different technique. Well, they did the operation. It wasn't a good recovery again. And to make it worse, I think they used a stapler instead of stitching it so that they can help with the keloid not forming. But the thing about it is that they have to take each one out. They have to take each one of it out. When I finally got home and the midwife came to take it out, it was so painful and they had to keep on taking each one. It took so long. And that was how I had my second C-section, emergency C-section. Okay, fast forward to 6-7 years later, got pregnant again, and this time around older. Felt I was a bit wiser. So much information online now. We have Instagram, YouTube, everything. I read and watched many videos of VBACs and everything. And I learned a lot. So I knew about the red raspberry leaf tea, the dates, the exercise, the ball. I had the ball in my second pregnancy, which I was bouncing on, and it did help. So everything I did helped. Getting to the hospital is the only thing that changes things for me. They are the ones that sabotage things. They're the ones that don't help you. And they don't wait for your body to up itself. They just, if things don't go their way quickly, or if things don't change for you quickly, they're not there to help you. They're there to give you whatever it is that they feel that can help them out and get you out of the labor room as quick as possible. So it's that you help yourself and get there and know what you're doing and be ready to have the baby within hours, or you subject yourself to whatever it is that they do, and whatever comes out of it. So this time around I was prepared. It was a different hospital entirely, and I told them I wanted a VBAC. And they're like, oh, VBAC after C-section. It's not. It's doable. We can accommodate that. It will be good for our numbers. That's what the doctor said. He called the consultant. The consultant came and said, okay, we're going to put a rod inside of you if you don't go into labor to help you induce labor, because we can't give you any hormones or put a gel inside of you. I did have sweeps. I did have sweep for my first one, my second one, and I had sweep for this one as well. The sweep that the doctor did, I had sweeps with the midwife like twice. The sweep the doctor did was so painful, and I lost my mucus plug on that day. But I was thinking I was going to go into labor, but nothing happened. For the third pregnancy, I walked a lot. Exercise, bouncing on the ball, have sex, pineapple, dates, raspberry leaf tea. I did everything. But one thing I did not tell myself was that the EDD was estimated due date. That was not my due date. I did castor oil as well, because I was just basing it around the dates they gave me, instead of just relaxing and let my body do its thing and wait for when my body is ready or when I feel like I'm ready to induce labor. And then I could have done it at the end after their date had gone. But I was doing it at 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 39 weeks, so that I don't go in overdue on their date. Well, it did not work. I ended up going back to them because they said they're going to give me a date for induction for 41 weeks if my body does not go into labor. So I was doing everything. Anyway, I went at 41 weeks. They didn't have a bed as well. They sent me home and said I should come the next day. I told my husband, do you think I should go? He said, why not? Well, he didn't know better too. So the next day I went, and they said, oh, they don't think the rod is going to work, but they're going to just break my water instead. I was like, okay, it's a different hospital. They understand what I want. They would definitely not put me in any situation I don't want to be, knowing fully well that I want a VBAC. And I've asked them for help, that I want everything to be done. Everyone should do everything possible for me to have a VBAC. And they've said yes, so I was thinking, why not? They broke my water. Same thing as well, meconium. And they're like, meconium is not a big deal. I was like, yeah, I've read about it as well, that it's not a big deal if it's just a small amount and baby hasn't swallowed any. So I was in labor, but it was just few contractions coming after they broke my water later that night. In the middle of the night, because my baby was back to back, meaning that the back of my baby was resting on my spine, and I was having a back labor. The baby was not descending down the birth canal, so meaning that the baby wasn't ready to come out yet. So the induction failed, but when your water is broken, there's nothing else. There's no failed induction anymore. They have to get the baby out one way or the other. It's either you give birth to the baby or they do a cesarean for you. Well, I didn't want to have a C-section. So the next day, the consultant came. I had different consultants come in and say, who even agreed to it? Who is your consultant? I was like, well, my consultant said I can do this. And they had me on a plan, but now the plan is changing. I'm not being induced with a rod anymore. It's just breaking my water. And they're like, okay, we're going to give it to 6 p.m. today, since you've been in labor since your water was broken yesterday. 6 p.m. today. If you don't, then we're going to have a C-section. And I kept on saying, in the middle of the night, I want to move around. Because I was mobile a day before when my water was broken, but during the night shift, they said, oh, the monitor is not working properly when you're walking around. And they told me that the monitor was going to work fine, that they would accommodate me. Anyway, they said the monitor was not working was not working well, so I should lie down. Of course, I lied down. I was tired. I slept. And when I woke up in the morning, the contractions were getting bad. So at that point, I couldn't make any decisions myself anymore. I was just asking once in a while, can you please take me up? I want to be mobile. I want this contraction to progress a lot more. And being mobile would be the only situation that would make it progress. I know my body, but no one was listening to me. And at some point, I just gave up. And I was lying down, changing position to side to improve labor. The only thing that was being done by the consultants and the doctors was to bring student doctors, and then they tell them, the consultant checks me and tells me how many centimeters I am. And I kept on saying at some point, why I don't want to be checked anymore. They're like, there's no way we won't check you. We have to check you to know how you're progressing for us to decide if we're going to let you continue or we'll stop. Well, they checked me around 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. and said, oh, you're still 8 centimeters dilated, but we're going to give it to 6 p.m. But before the 6 p.m., they kept on coming in and they were just forcing me to sign it. If doctors come in, you need to sign it. If you don't sign it, your baby is going to die. You die. Do you want to die? Do you want your baby to die? All I was just saying was die, die, die. No one was helping me get up. No one was helping me do anything. I was just using my gas and air. Even a consultant was saying I was faking my contractions. When I was having contractions, he was trying to talk to me and I wasn't answering. And he was like, you're not contracting. And the midwife said, no, she's actually contracting. They're like, really? Yeah. So because I wasn't screaming my head off, because their own guideline is only when a woman is screaming her head off is she in labor, is she contracting. But at that third pregnancy, I already knew how to control my breathing and how to use the gas and air to control my contractions, to help my contractions. So I wasn't screaming my head off. The only time I knew that I was going to scream my head off was when I was at that last stage, when I have transitioned into the active labor. I knew that I might not be able to take the pain anymore with just gas and air. But because I wasn't screaming, they thought I was lying and they thought that I wouldn't progress. So they kept on forcing me. I said, my husband is not around. He's going to take the kids from school. They're like, it doesn't matter. You're the only one that can decide. You need to sign it. Your baby is in distress. I was like, my baby is not in distress. Even if my baby is in distress, can you change my position? They're like, no. Just sign it so that you can have a C-section. They called a doctor, a black doctor, to come and talk to me. A Nigerian doctor. He was the one I saw before that gave me the sweep. And he came to meet me. You know, if you were my wife, I wouldn't let you go through all this You've tried. You're 8 centimeters now. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 8 centimeters. Why not just let me be? And just keep monitoring the baby. And let's do everything possible to... They're like, no, we just have to go for a C-section now. It will be better for you. The doctors are ready. The surgeons are ready. We already have a space. If we lose this space, we're not going to get any. And there might not be anyone at night to do this operation if I needed one. And they already staffed me since the day before, since the night time. I was not allowed to eat anything from the evening because they already had this written that I was going to have a C-section. So I wasn't given something to eat. I wasn't strong enough to even go through. How I even went from that night till 6 p.m. I don't know. Without not eating anything. I was given tea in the morning, but I threw it up. Anyway, by 6 p.m. we went for a C-section. My baby was born. Because I was already tired, I just gave up. I signed the sheet. I was like, okay, you won again. Now I know better that no matter how many hospitals I go to in this world, once a C-section, they will want to make it always a C-section. And that's how I had my third baby. So I knew what I was getting into when I wanted to go for a VBAC, a vaginal birth, after 3 C-sections. I watched a lot of videos of women that have gone through it and the things they went through. And their stories were similar with all their C-sections, or their emergency C-sections, on how they were forced to have C-sections, even though there was nothing wrong with their baby. Some people were forced, some people were lied that their babies were big. And when they finally brought the baby out, the baby was small. Some people were lied to in different ways. But the most lie they say is baby's heart rate is dropping. And they keep telling you that, and they keep scaring you. The more they scare you, the more the baby's heart rate drops, because the baby is feeling your stress. Babies knows you are in distress, and for that reason they are in distress as well. The positioning as well can make your baby be in distress. Many things can make a baby go in distress, and many things can be changed quickly to make the baby's heart rate be normal. It's not by taking the baby out, and they know that. Anyway, for my VBAC, I did everything I was doing before. I knew that. Now I knew very well that I was doing everything right. It was just the hospital that was my problem. But what I did differently this time around was I refused to see a consultant because I knew what they were going to say, and I felt that I understand it and I understand their dilemma. They don't go through that. They don't accept VBACs. It's fine. So I kept on going to my midwife appointments. I went to my scans, my bloods, every test that was offered to me, I did it. The only thing I said I wasn't interested in was waiting 1.5 hours to see a doctor, a junior doctor. You never even see the consultant. They just write it in your note that you are consultant-led. The doctor takes your information and passes it to the consultant. The consultant tells the doctor what to say to you. So I wasn't interested. So everything went smooth for me. When I go for my scan, I go for my scan and I leave. I don't have to wait another 1 hour, 1.5 hours to see the doctor, for them to tell me they can't help me, but just to bring me down. I didn't have that. So my mental health was so fine during my pregnancy until later, my third trimester, and the midwife was asking about how I wanted to give birth, and I told them I would like to give birth at home because so the way I was treated in my last pregnancy, I don't feel the vibes of the hospital. I don't like the vibes of the hospital. I appreciate their help, but I would like for the midwives to be around me at home, monitor me, and I will be in a safe and happy environment. That's what I want. And they're like, okay, they can offer that. They brought all the kits to my house, checked my home for a home birth. But they said the consultant still wants to see me, that I should please go. So I think it was 37 weeks. I went to see the consultant. I went with my husband and the kids. They said we could bring the kids and everything. We went there. We were there for 1 hour, 2 hours. We were still not seen. My husband had to go because one of the kids had an appointment. He had to go, and that was when they called me. And guess what? I was not seen by the consultant. I was seen by a junior doctor. The same doctor that was told to convince me to have a C-section was the same doctor they pushed to me. Or maybe he chose me. And I was like, oh, how are you doing? Nice to see you again, blah, blah, blah. Now, you're going to have a C-section, right? I said, no, I'm not having a C-section. I was like, really? I said, yes, I would like to try a vaginal birth. He was like, oh, okay. Let me call the consultant. He called the consultant. The consultant came in. That was not my consultant, just a random consultant. And he said, oh, we can't allow that. Why would you want to do that? After 3 C-sections, not even 1 C-section, not even 2 C-sections. After 3 C-sections, why would you want to do that? I said, oh well, I'll always try for a vaginal birth before choosing a C-section. That's just my belief. And he was shocked. And he was like, okay. I said, so what have you got to offer me? He said, okay, you have to be coming every day after you're overdue. And we have to be checking you to see that the baby is fine. I was like, I've got kids to worry about. I've got a family to run, a home to run. So, okay. Just book our appointment for next week. We'll see her next week. I was like, okay. Anyway, I left. I wasn't broken at all. He was saying, you want to die? You want your child to die? I had one of my child with me, and I was like, can you please keep your voice down and stop saying that there's this child here? He mentioned the death one more time before he kept quiet and realized what he was doing. It wasn't appropriate for that situation because there was a child in the room. Even though if you want to scare me, you want to scare the child as well. Anyway, he left, and I left as well. And I knew I wasn't going to go back there, but my assigned consultant then called me and said I should please come, and they want to speak to me. Oh well. I said, okay, I'll go, but this will be my last one. I would only go for 2 appointments, and this will be the second consultant appointment, and that will be my last one. Anyway, I spoke to her. She said she was not going to scare me with anything. They scanned me. Everything was fine. The baby was doing great. The baby was already 3.9, I think. 3.9 kg. So it was doing fine, very fine. My uterus was fine. Everything was fine. And she sat down. She said, I'm not going to lie to you. I know you can do it. I know you want to go for a vaginal birth. and everything, you have everything. You don't have any problem with your health or anything, so you're a good candidate for it. But it's just that we don't encourage it. That is the only thing. We don't encourage it. And they're like, and we wouldn't encourage you to go for her own birth. Even though if you want to have a vaginal birth, come and have it in our hospital. They said they were going to show me the hospital. I said, I already know about your room. Said, oh no, it's changed. We have the diffuser, we have the ball, we have the lighting. I said, you already told me about all of this. Anyway, they showed me everything again. I said, come to the hospital. We're going to take off home birth from your birthing plan and we'll put hospital birth instead. But if you don't go into labor by 40 weeks, we would like to have a C-section. I said, the C-section I want to agree to is when I'm 42 weeks, because by my own calculation, your 42 weeks is my 40 weeks. Meaning that you're wrong by 2 weeks. That's my own calculation. And they're like, okay, I have 42 weeks. But we already have a date, and they finally chose a date. The date was 40 weeks and 5 days. So I knew that. I told them 42 weeks was what I was going to agree to. Anyway, they gave me the 40 weeks and 5 days. On the day, I didn't go for the pre-op, which was a day before. So they knew I wasn't coming. On the day, they kept on calling my phone. They sent me an email. The midwife was calling me. I didn't pick up. They turned up at my house. I didn't show up. My husband was there. And he said, oh, she will call you. She's not at home at the moment. Anyway, I sent an email to the midwife. I said, thank you for your help, but I'm not interested in this section. I would wait for my body to do its thing. But if you have anything after 42 weeks, I'm down for it. So I kept on going for the midwife appointment. They come to check me at home as well. They said everything is fine. The baby is going down the birth canal. I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I asked for a vaginal check. But they said, oh, since you've seen the consultant has put it in your note that you shouldn't be checked because they don't want to encourage labor. You can do anything by yourself, but the hospital has decided not to help you in any way to encourage labor. And a vaginal examination is counted as an intervention. I was like, okay. They finally got a date for me. The date they got for me for the C-section was, by then I'll be by their own calculation, 42 weeks and 4 days. So I was meant to have a C-section on Tuesday. I went for a pre-op on Sunday. They took my blood. The lady asked, is there anything else you would like? I said, I wouldn't mind a vaginal check, because I can feel the baby down and I'm having contractions. It's just not strong contractions. And the lady went out and said she was coming. She went to meet someone. The midwife was like, oh, if she's not having a strong contraction, then we cannot give her an examination. She's going for operation on Tuesday anyway. Why does she want to know if she's dilated or not? Okay. I heard that through the curtains, and when the midwife came back, I knew they didn't want anything like that. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, love. We don't want to start off anything since you have your operation on Tuesday. Just go home and relax. I was like, okay, thank you. They gave me the blood thinning injection. And I went on with the blood thinning injection and the pill I was meant to use. Well, when I went out of the hospital, I was in the curb working. The curb working, someone came out of the car park. A lady, she just popped her head out of a car and said, "Don't worry, love, you can do this. Just keep doing it." As soon as she left, I just started crying. Hormones, isn't it? Well, I was crying and doing the curb walking, wiping my tears and doing the curb walking. Anyway, I got to meet my husband at Starbucks. I checked online for I said, okay, I might as well order the drink, the label drink. I found one online and I ordered it, but I later found out it wasn't the right one. So I got it and I was like, I don't want any ice or even very little ice. Well, they put half the cup with ice and half the cup with drink. I drank it. My husband and I, we went to the shop, so we walked like for an hour and a half or more, buying things I might need when I go to the hospital, dried fruits, biscuits, snacks that I can, because I don't know how long I will stay in the hospital for. Because my third pregnancy, after the C-section, because of the vaginal examinations that was going on after my water had broken, there was quite a lot of vaginal examination. I had an infection. I was treated for an infection, and the baby was treated for an infection as well. They kept us there for 7 days to see if anything progresses. We're on antibiotics. There was nothing wrong with us. There was nothing wrong with me because I was cleared the next day. That they were just being cautious that it wasn't an infection after all. But they were giving me antibiotics for in case anything develops. For my son as well, they were giving me antibiotics just in case. And his test was showing something wrong, but physically there was nothing wrong. They just kept him there. I kept on examining every day. So with this one, I didn't have any sweep for my fourth birth. I didn't have any sweep. I didn't have any intervention, no vaginal checks, nothing. Anyway, we walked. And that's how everything went. If you want to check my first video, I have a video about my vaginal birth after 3 C-section. So this video is just a recap of everything that happened to me before I decided to have a VBAC. And my own advice for people is, you have to know your body. You have to know how your body operates. If your period doesn't come on time, or your period does last longer than usual people, then things will change for you during pregnancy as well. It matters. All these things matter. So if they give you a date, just know that it's an estimated date. You can go into labor before, you can go into labor after. And one thing that you have to do is to make sure you understand the dynamics of the hospital and do as much as possible to help yourself. In my next video, I will share the tips of what I did to go into labor. the exact things I did, but this video is just for a recap of my birthing history.